Time for another edition of Wake Up the Echoes, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, and what a weekend for Notre Dame football. They are back above 500. The offense is rolling. The defense is cooking. It was just great to see them get another win at home, and it's just such a nice time of year. 2 more home games than a bye week. Great to see Notre Dame football making some strides in the right direction, and they're on a roll. But we're talking men's basketball this week. If you recall, last week we had Coach Neil Ivey on the show, and one of the things she previewed was Irish Jam, that event that was held on Eddy Street Friday before the game against Boise State, and it really lived up to the hype. I mean, all the footage and all the pictures I saw from the event, talking to all the people that were there, it was just an outstanding community event to see everybody get out there and support the basketball teams. So when Coach Shrewsberry came by for this week's episode, we kind of recapped what he saw and just the significance of getting everyone together to kind of get excited about basketball season, which is now less than a month away. So great to have Coach Shrews back on the couch. He also brought along later in the show new general manager Pat Garrity. This guy is the GM now for Notre Dame men's and women's basketball. Super unique role. And they talked about how this will help them tackle kind of this new frontier we're on with college athletics as a whole, but specifically on the hoop side. It was great to chat with him about that and then also kind of reminisce about his time here at Notre Dame. So before we get to that conversation, I do want to remind you that Tire Rack doesn't just sell tires. They test them on the road and on their test track. Learn how the tires you want tackle evasive maneuvers, drive and stop in the rain, or just handle the everyday commute. Go to TireRack.com to see their test results, tire ratings, and consumer reviews. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be. All right, let's talk to Coach Shrewsberry and Pat Garrity. Coach Shrews, welcome back. Wake Up the Echoes. I'm going to talk all about men's basketball in a second, but let's start with what we were just chatting about before we started rolling here, and that is the football game. Yeah. You were telling me, Notre Dame Stadium, we love it to death. One of the best places in the world to watch a football game, but your seating arrangement, it's a little bit complicated for you. Why don't you tell everybody the tough part about where you sit in the stadium?
Yeah, so I sit on the visitor's sideline. So it's pretty cool. Like, because of recruiting, I go down on the field with our recruits. And then, I get a chance to see the band come on the field, do all that. But as they kind of finish the national anthem, I walk around and go up. I get to see all the football players' parents. To throw some high fives over there and see those guys. And then I go to my seats, and the sun welcomes me every single game. It's like, hey, welcome back. We have these great ushers.
Yeah, welcome to Notre Dame Stadium.
The son says the same exact thing to me, and he was talking to me on Saturday. Welcome to Notre Dame Stadium.
Oh, it was brutal. Alan Wazalewski does a great job. He's one of the communication guys in the football office, and 6th hottest game ever in stadium history, and the hottest October game of all time. I'm up there in the booth, and it just drills us too. I was in a full sweat calling the game, where you had to be breaking a sweat out there if you're in the sun for 4 hours.
I kept calling it Ogtober.
Ogtober. Yes. That's a good one.
That's exactly what it was. It was not, the temperature was a little bit different for an October.
Yeah, but we love to see them win.
That's right.
They're kind of humming right now, so I'm excited to see what comes next. This is a great weekend, I think, for the entire athletic department because of Irish Jam. And I unfortunately couldn't go, had a previous engagement, but I saw all the footage, heard all about it. Seems like it was a rip-roaring success. Just from your standpoint, and probably for those that are listening that didn't get a chance to go, what was the experience like, and what did it do for the program and the entire community in your eyes?
Yeah, it was really fun. Great event, right? And obviously we've thanked them a lot, right? Under Armour for what they did, the partnership and helping put that together. But I think the people that don't get enough credit are some of the people sitting here behind camera with us as well, like our FIM group and like all of the work that they did to kind of put that together and have that day run. Like the thankless jobs, I guess now I'm thanking them for what they did. So thank you guys that are sitting here and back behind the camera. But I thought it was an awesome event. So fun for our guys to get out there, fun for the community. The people that came and watched, and and there were a few highlight moments that were pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw some of the highlights. And again, Coach Ivy, when she was here last week, it lived up to kind of what you described. We were making sure no one gets hurt, but plenty of baskets. I saw Hannah hit the big one late. I also think there's something so cool about taking basketball outside. It's this sport that we all have. Some of my favorite basketball memories are playing across the street at a sport court next door. Like, do you get the sense like the guys love just being outside and then with the whole community kind of surrounding them? It seemed like such a unique opportunity in that way.
It was like to kind of be on stage and see the crowd out there as you kind of stepped up to that top step of the stage, to see all the fans. There are some really cool pictures online of the crowd and from up top. But our guys, like, they don't get that opportunity much anymore. And it was a little bit different too, right? Like, Braden talks about he went first and like the depth perception from the corner in the 3-point contest.
Yeah.
Like, 7-Eleven's behind you. Like there's normally something else that's a little bit different that you're looking at when you're shooting corner threes.
There's Coke products at the 7-Eleven in your backdrop, right? It's like a Final Four, right? It's like the stadium there. I do want to we've talked about it now. This is your third year as the head coach here and the importance of this specific community. We've had 5-7-4 day. Always talked about Marcus and JR in the past, just the specialness there is to this community. And this felt like a real opportunity. I know there was like a first responders event. There's some local, younger kids that got to play. Like, to me, that's kind of what it's all about. And I know it was great to get them out there and maybe introduce some of the new guys to the community. But what did it mean to see so many people from around the area come out and support you guys in this way?
I told our guys, I talked to them about this early on in the week, that, this 574 community, this South Bend area, this community is like, Notre Dame fans are everywhere, right? Like, we're all over the world, but some Notre Dame fan in Spain is going to have a hard time getting to a Tuesday night game against Boston College.
It's a great point.
Right? Like, this is our base. These are the fans that are with you night in and night out, rooting you on in those games. Like, we play a lot of games. Football plays once a week, and it's easy to get to on the weekend, but we play during the week. We play a lot of games, and this community, this 574, the South Bend, like all these surrounding communities, this is our group that is there for you on a nightly basis.
Yeah. I think also like talking to Demetrius and seeing Blake the last couple of years and then Marcus, there's just kind of this history of like, can we pass it down and keep trying to breed this next generation of great Irish hoopers? Takes me to this. Okay. Great work. You mentioned the people behind the scenes. I mean, they're just on the money here. So these are the Bend jerseys. I saw these drop, I think, was it maybe the day before the event? Let's see if I don't know if they're looking at them here. Okay. Tell me about this. Let's start here. What's your level of involvement with something like this? Because I love this look. It's so unique and so new.
Yeah. My level of involvement is pretty close to zero.
Okay.
Hey, coach,
do you get to go thumb up, thumb down at the end? I mean,
as we got to it, but you trust like creative people. I'm not always the most creative in things like this, but as I saw it and then they started, talking about the different features, that was really cool for me to look at and see.
I think I saw, and I have to double check, I'll look the numbers owed to the Studebaker factory, right? I mean, that to me is the attention to detail that's so cool, and it comes back to the city's origins. You guys are wearing these pretty early on in the season, right? What's the level of excitement to kind of bust out a new look when you have, that kind of ode to the city?
Yeah, like being able, like I said, that like we're representing it, and awesome video that they put out. They talk about kind of the history and how they wove it into the jersey. But yeah, there's a sense of pride there when we put them on the first game and get a chance to come out and play in these. Like, it's going to be fun, right? Like I said, each detail. You talk about the Studebaker, you talk about the Bend and the Oyster House and how that's on the side of it, and like little things like that. There was a lot of thought that went into this, and it turned out great.
Okay, that helps us kind of pivot towards the season a little bit. Let's talk some hoops, just because I think we're less than a month till we get going here. Just how's it been going off season, getting guys ready? Where's your excitement level at, and kind of what are you seeing here the first few weeks?
Yeah, it's been really fun. Like, this is a this is a fun group to coach.
Okay.
I talk about this in recruiting, like 2 things that I look for when recruiting. 1, look for kids that fit Notre Dame. 2, I look for kids that fit me.
Okay.
And when you start talking about kids that fit me, competitiveness is high on that list. And we have a very, very competitive group.
Mm-hmm. What have the practices been like? I think I've heard a lot of talk about getting back to defensive intensity. Are you seeing that, and how are you maybe coaching that or trying to implement that here in these first few weeks?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time. We start practice every day with a session called Winning Habits.
Okay.
And that changes each day. It's something different, but it's small things that accumulated over time will lead to winning. So we do a lot of rebounding drills during that time. Maybe we need closeouts or something. And we always start with something like that. But, practices have been a mix of, offense, defense. Like, you're seeing a lot of different things. We're playing a lot, because we got to get our chemistry down with certain guys and what they're doing. But, we have to limit how long we can go.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, at the end of it, these guys, it's like, all right, hey, guys, we still got to get to the games. Like, that's, for me, I'm like, let's get to November the 3rd and play our first game, because these guys will try and tear each other's heads off in practice.
I like to hear that. Now, the first game, regular season games, you said November 3rd, but the exhibition coming up, gosh, 11 days, kind of hard to believe, but it's down in Butler, obviously a place that means a lot to you. What's the excitement level on that front? You get to go down there. I'm sure for Braden it'll be great too. Just the whole team getting a chance to play in that building is pretty neat as well. Just that coming together, what's that mean for you in the program?
Yeah, I remember as a middle schooler, St. Matthew's School right there, going to Butler Notre Dame games in Hinkle.
Really?
As a middle schooler, right? So it's cool. Like, we went for a long time with the Crossroads Classics and the teams played, but not home and home, right? So this kind of gets back to that. And it's cool for us. We have a lot of Indiana ties, right? That with, Logan Imes from Zionsville, Brady Kaler, Indianapolis, Jalen from Anderson that's close to there. We have other guys outside of Indianapolis, but are close. Like, it's not very far for Cole Serta's family to get to Indianapolis. So a lot of families will be there. And then, like you said, I spent four years there as an assistant. Braden grew up crawling around on Hinkle's floor, and Brady Stevens, right, obviously he and Braden grew up in that gym together. So getting a chance for those guys to go back and play there will be a cool experience for them.
Okay, last one that I have before we take a break and bring in Pat Garrity is just, I guess, about you have that exhibition, then you have another one here at home against DePaul, which I think is great. A couple of opportunities to really get these guys on the floor. Like, as a coach, these games, what do you try to get out of them? And I think these are two uniquely opportune exhibitions with the opponent and kind of the venue situation.
Yeah, they're a little different. Because, especially the first one in Butler, like, you go in a little bit blind, because they could be doing things completely different than they did last year. When I looked the other day, they have maybe 3 guys returning and the rest of their team's brand new. So you don't, right? It's more about you in the first one. The second exhibition, you get a chance to maybe do a little more prep. So you start to prepare your team for what a regular game may be. So that's what you're trying to get there. I think you're trying to see different combinations, trying to see different guys play together. Should be a great crowd in Indy. Yeah, I know that, so that'll be fun to kind of challenge ourselves in that way on the road. And then, playing Butler, playing DePaul, two schools that are recognizable for the older generation of Notre Dame fans. That
some nostalgic matchups.
Yeah, some nostalgic matchups of teams that were always on the schedule. So 2 good coaches, 2 good programs. It'll be 2 great tests for our group.
Yeah, I'm excited. I can't believe basketball's already here, but talking to Coach Ivey last week, having you back. And now I'm getting kind of antsy waiting for it. I'm sure you are too. So
you normally, when you know it's basketball season, because you start to put sweatshirts on. But with October still happening, we're still in short sleeves and shorts.
A misdirect from October, kind of teasing us, making us think it's not as close as it is, but it is right around the corner.
It was right around the corner.
All right, let's take a break, and they'll bring in Pat Garrity. All right, Coach, brought along a very special guest. Pat Garrity, welcome back to Notre Dame, and welcome to Wake Up the Echoes for the first time.
Thanks, Tony. It's great to be here. It's been a great 4 months working with this group and this staff, and I knew him before, just the first couple of years that the coach and staff was here, but it's more coming back as an ex-player and as a fan, but it's even better working with them.
Yeah. Okay. So there's people listening that probably don't necessarily know your background, but you played here in the 90s, Big East Player of the Year. You go off and have an NBA career. What's the role now, general manager with both the men's and women's basketball team?
Well, the role on the men's side, a little bit different than the women's. On both sides, the GM role is essentially planning for the future when it comes to the roster in NIL. And, it's a new world, and especially after this summer when rules changed again, there's a lot that we're getting up to speed on. But essentially, it's helping coach and helping DL, think about 2026, 2027, those teams, and planning their recruiting around it, what the resources that we have to work with, and different ways that we can put ourselves in an advantage in retaining the team. Because if you talk to any college basketball coach, the biggest thing they're worried about after they're forming relationships with young players, getting them on campus, they're here, then the immediate thought is, how are we going to retain all these players?
Coach, I listen to a guy like that, and he sounds like a subject matter expert. And this segment is the subject matter expert segment presented by the tire experts at TireRack.com. Just how valuable is it to have someone like this kind of helping you in this role?
Yeah, it's really helpful. It starts with, his knowledge of Notre Dame, and what it takes to be successful here as a student athlete.
Mm-hmm.
But then like the professional, the time they spent in professional athletics, and now you're dealing with salary caps, player retention,
Mm-hmm.
Player acquisitions, whatever it may be. All things that there was no coaching one-on-one manual.
Yeah.
All right. As I was trying to learn how to be a coach, those were not subjects that were in there. So it's things that Neil and I as coaches, we're trying to learn and figure out on the fly, but having his expertise on the subject matter.
Yeah.
Has really helped us.
How much do you have to study up on the way this is changing? Because, to me, it's so different than it was 5 years ago. It's going to be different 5 years from now. From your standpoint, how much of there is a getting up to speed element to this? Because I have trouble keeping track of the way things go on a day-to-day basis, and it's not my full-time job.
Yeah, and it's quite different than the NBA. The NBA, there's a full history and a body of work to study on how to do things and how teams are getting advantages. Like right now in college basketball, we're literally writing the rules as we go along.
Yeah.
And a good example is this year. It's the first year of NIL Go, which is this clearinghouse system where you have to put in any kind of third-party NIL deals into the system. And the issue in football, and particularly men's and women's basketball, is prior to July 1st, a lot of those deals were paid out, so they didn't have to go into the system. So the big issue that we're dealing with right now is really trying to calibrate and understand, what that system and the level kind of scrutiny and enforcement looks like, because we won't really know that until the 2026-27 season. And so right now, it's just a matter of coming up with ideas, really being thoughtful of the way that we're doing, so we stay, that we're operating in a compliant way, but also, being aggressive and creative, because all of our competitors are doing that right now too.
Yeah. I want to shift a little bit to you being back in South Bend. Your son plays on the football team. What's it like getting a chance to be near him as he goes through this experience? Because it's got to be super unique.
We think it's great. You'll have to ask him how great he thinks it is. He thought it was great this weekend when he dropped his laundry off for my wife to do. But no, it's good because I feel like I get a firsthand perspective from him of what it's like to be a student here. And so much has changed since when I was here, that it's really fun to see how he perceives things on campus, what he likes, what he doesn't like, the kind of things that he and his teammates are thinking about. And, this is kind of the time in his life and our life where we have 2 more years till he goes off in the world. So it's to be able to be around him these last 2 years before he goes off and work is really special.
Have you given him any tips on Notre Dame dad life? I know we've talked about it's your coach, but just, it's a similar spot, and it's one of those things I think that when you zoom out, years from now, it'll be pretty cool to reflect on that. Have you given him any tips on how to adjust to this new dynamic?
No, make him learn on the fly. You know how to handle it.
Okay.
I think we're still figuring it out. Sure. We've gotten into a groove of during the week, we don't really see each other a whole lot except at practices, but there are always some weekend visits, which I know I know my wife appreciates, and I'm sure his wife appreciates those Sunday pop-ins. That the boys, come in and say hello.
It goes a long way. It's got to be special. What's the biggest change? I mean, you were here almost, I don't want to make us all feel old. I feel old thinking about college basketball I used to watch back in the day. What's the biggest change when you come on this campus and see from when you were a player here?
Yeah, I think just with athletes in general now, all the stuff from the outside that they have to deal with at an early age. And this isn't a Notre Dame thing. I think this is just being a high exposure athlete in general, like the number of the voices and the feedback and the narratives around them, they all have to, they're all hearing and they're all trying to deal with. That's number one. I think number two is just the commercial aspect around college sports now when it comes to athletes. It's just something that we never thought about or had to deal with. Like if you weren't playing right away, there was no easy solution in terms of transferring. You kind of fought through it. And I think just how that timeline of how athletes view their careers has been compressed is the biggest thing that I noticed when dealing with our players.
Okay, so I've heard Coach Freeman talk about this a lot. And I haven't talked to you about this as much, but I know it's a challenge for every coach. He talks about delayed gratification. And we live in a society now where I think things come to you, I don't know if they come easily, but they just generally come quicker than they used to. What's the biggest challenge as a coach? And now you have, people that are helping you on this front to an extent, but you're not getting what you probably want or prefer right away, player X. But if you buy into this system, there will be a dividend down the road, and they don't see it right away. How do you communicate that? Because I find that to be the challenge that a lot of coaches run into these days.
Yeah, I think for us, there's a lot of trust and honesty leading during the recruitment period before they get here.
Okay, so expectation setting.
Expectation setting. And the biggest thing for us is what we say we're going to do, we're going to stick to, and we're going to do. So, we do our best to treat these guys in the best way possible. We help them grow as young men. We help them grow as players. And if you can show them a path to opportunity, then they can see it. If they can't see a path to an opportunity, then that's the easiest way for them to say, I can't play here.
Yeah.
Why should I stay here? But if you can show them what it looks like, all right, the timeline might be different. Maybe you exceed the timeline and your opportunity comes quicker. Then, that could change as well. But if they can see a chance for them to get a chance to play while you're treating them the right way, while they're being taken care of, while they love their experience, then that's a huge part of trying to keep them.
Okay. When you have conversations with players, Pat, I mean, do you ever lean on your NBA experience? Because if you go to the next level, things don't necessarily come at the right time or the time that you want it to come, right? How do you communicate that with your experience and your background?
Well, first of all, I don't think any of these guys watch early 2000s NBA. So we might have a couple that might know who some of the players were. It's actually impressive what they do. But no, I think rather than getting into specifics about my own personal experience, I think the main thing, especially with young players, is that number one, you're going to develop a ton from the time that you step on campus as an 18-year-old, even to the start of your junior year. Like that 2 years, you're just going to physically change. And I think number two is, there's no rush in the process. You have to put in work to get those dividends down the road. And then the other thing, and this is just something I think that players don't understand when they're young until they go through it is just the level of attention to detail that you need to bring to the table in order for a coaching staff to trust you. Like if you're a gifted, physically talented player, it's easy to get on the floor for short minutes of time and to show flashes and to show potential. But for you to really get on there and be someone that the coaches trust and to be someone that really impacts winning, that like level of attention to detail is something I think that all young players struggle with early on. And you just don't, like sometimes it clicks and sometimes it doesn't. And for the guys that it does over, their first year or early on to their sophomore year, those are the guys that really, impact winning. So just explaining to them the importance of that early on in their careers.
Okay, so my follow-up is, and it can be for both of you, but I'll start with you, Coach. When you're recruiting someone, knowing that when they get on campus day one, freshman year, like you said, and they're going to be a different player by that start of their junior year, how do you identify the people that are more likely to have those traits, that they will become someone you can trust to be in the right spot defensively with 3 minutes left? You can play them and know that at a young age when they're 16, 17 before you get your hands on them.
Yeah, and that's a part of how we recruit. And I think we recruit more with a smaller lens than a large net, right? So you really narrow in on the amount of people that you recruit. So it allows you to spend more time getting to know them, spending more time talking to everybody around them to see what those traits and habits look like.
Okay.
Right. So, you don't know exactly until you get them, but you have a pretty good idea before they get there.
Okay. What about you? Do you have an idea? Like when you see a young player, you can see it and you can just tell they'll be somebody that gets where we need them to get?
Yeah. I mean, I think they, Coach said it right. It's those things that you learn over the course of a conversation. One of my most important things is how much does this player really love basketball? And it sounds like of course they all like it. They're at this level. I'm convinced that there's a lot of really good players out there that like being recruited, that like the exposure. But when you really dig down, is how much do they actually love playing and love basketball? So for me, that's always, and at the at the NBA level, that was always in draft interviews one of the things that we talked about. And I think at a young age, you can tell a lot of times, like you can tell the players that their whole life is about the game and getting better and loving to play.
How do you find that out? In a draft interview or just when you're talking to somebody that like you love basketball, not you love the paycheck or the notoriety?
Well, one of the easy ways is like, who do you like watching? Like what teams do you like watching? What players do you like watching? Another question is you ask them, what are you working on in your game? Like, what do you like about your game right now, but what do you want to work on?
Yeah.
And
they can self-identify
you can tell the players that are thinking about that kind of thing and working with people, and it's thought, first in their head. And you can tell ones that are like, oh, I've never really thought about that before.
I'm going to start quizzing people on that then. When I see them, like, hey, who's your favorite player? I always ask favorite players growing up. Who were your favorite players growing up when you were a young guy playing basketball?
Well,
this is fine. We embrace an age gap here.
Yeah, this is different because it wasn't who I modeled my game after. But, you think about it, like WGN was one of the few stations carrying every Bulls game. And so I loved, obviously I love Jordan. I also love Patrick Ewing for some reason. Like those are two really different players.
I'm a Sonics fan, grew up in Seattle, so we got him at the very end. We didn't get the real Patrick Ewing, but
yeah. Well, and I had the chance to play with him 1 year toward the end of his career in Orlando. Not a lot of people remember that he was with Orlando for a year. And I was
on the staff for a while too, right?
He was on the staff, and I always tell people he was one of my favorite teammates just because of the level of professionalism that he brought. He got his first DNP ever in his career in Orlando and came back to practice the next day, just going to war like he did when he was playing.
Yeah. I would imagine, I'd love to actually ask like the current guys now, like how much they know about Patrick Ewing. Cause like I knew, they don't even know Patrick Ewing.
The guy who used to coach Georgetown?
Oh, man, that is so sad if that's true. Because, golly, for me, waking up Sunday morning, NBA and NBC, and there's Patrick Ewing probably playing the Bulls. I mean, it was just, those are core memories for me. Have I asked you who your guys were growing up?
I don't know. Probably we've talked about it. I was a point guard, so I was a huge Magic Johnson fan because his passing ability, the way he saw the game, like I just loved watching him when I was growing up.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. Okay, I was going to say this for later, but we're talking NBA guys now. This is just self-serving for me. So my guy is J.J. Redick, and you were on the Magic team when he got into the league. Why was Brian Hill not playing him his rookie year? I went to a game in Seattle. I got amazing seats, and he walked over. He saw me wear my J.J. Redick jersey, and he said, "I'm not playing tonight." I was like, okay, well, this is devastating. And so obviously, I had a great career, but Brian Hill would not play him, and then Stan got there. And
I'll tell you exactly why, and it goes back to some of the things that we were talking about earlier. Okay. It was his habits early on coming in as a rookie, and it sounds crazy now because later in his career now as a coach, there's probably no one who's more maniacal about preparation and his routine in season and out of season than JJ. I mean, the level of discipline throughout his career is just, it's up there with any of the great players. But early on when he was a rookie, it was not like that. And Brian Hill was an old school coach. And he said, until you come with good habits and I can trust you, even though you're making shots in practice, I'm not going to play you.
Yeah.
And it took a year or two for JJ to learn that, and something flipped. And he talked about it when Stan got in there, didn't play a lot early on, and then that next year trusted him, and that was really the takeoff point for him. And that was one of those situations where success for him reinforced the importance of what was leading to his success.
Yeah. Follow up then, just what was it like being around Dwight Howard at that age? Because he was like coming into his own. He was unlike anything I think we've ever seen in the NBA.
Yeah, well, no, talk about a little bit of the opposite.
Yeah.
No, the opposite in the sense that he never really had to. First of all, Dwight was a smart player. Like defensively, his instincts, but just his physical ability was like the 0.01% of NBA players. Like there was a stretch of time when he was winning Defensive Player of the Year or was leading candidate to get it, where he was just an anchor to the defense. And I think the other thing that you can look at with him that not a lot of people understand is you go look at his first 7 years of his career and the games that he missed. He didn't miss games.
Yeah.
Like I think he missed maybe 7 games over his first 7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
So just his physical resilience and the workload that he carried in the minutes that he played, like the guy was unlike anything I'd ever seen before.
Yeah, he was unbelievable at that time. All right, we got to take a break. I'm sorry, Coach. We'll let you get out of here. Pat, I'm going to keep you around and ask you probably some more 2006, 2007 Magic questions when we come back. Thanks a lot. Pat, thanks for sticking around. This is our Tell Me a Story segment. It's presented by our good friends at Yeti. Can I interest you in a drink first? We have all Coke products.
Oh, there we go.
And Dasani water, which is a Coke product. We have sparkling Topo Chico.
Oh, Topo Chico, I'll do one.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, that actually bums me out because I wanted that. But now it's okay. You're our guest, and you got it. So, yeah, tell me a story. I've got a lot of things I want to hear more about. I will spare the listeners, the J.J. Redick second-year breakthrough with the Magic Genesis story, and ask you about raising an only child. And I ask this because I'm an only child. We mentioned that your son's on the football team. He's a student here, and he's your only child. And we are raising one son. It's going to be an only child as well. So what's your experience been like raising an only child son? Because that's what I'm due for, and that's what I went through.
Number one, it's really hard not to spoil him.
Okay.
So, admittedly, he was the center of our life and obviously loved sports and everything like that. And we were around all the time. And, my wife, I would like to say, was a little bit more of a culprit than I was. But it's just hard not to.
Yeah.
But no, one of the best things about it was just being able to be there and coach him and be a part of his teams. And you have a lot of kids. That's a lot of fun too. But maybe get stretched a little bit thin. We were never really stretched that thin with Henry.
Yeah. So how do you thread that needle of you're probably in a position? I can feel this already. Like we can give him a lot. We can give him a lot of attention, and then he's never going to have to share with a sibling. Like I was staying with my friend the other day. They've got 2 kids, and so they're having to kind of police the behavior, which makes total sense. We aren't going to have as much of that. How did you instill that and not spoil him when I imagine it's very tempting to just give him everything?
Yeah, well, I mean, this is maybe a little part of like the athlete, and when I coached is trying to bring a little bit of that to the table in terms of accountability.
Okay.
when I was involved with his teams in sports early on, that's obviously something you try to talk about with players and young athletes. And so just as much as we can, like bringing that into our house of, being honest, and when you make a mistake, admit to it. And when you have to accept consequences, you have to do that sometimes. So that's how we tried to handle it. But he turned out pretty well, so we must not have been that bad.
Yeah, you must have done a pretty good job. Okay, last one I can ask about the only child life and raising one. Do you have an age, a point in time that I should make sure to like soak in the most? Because right now he's 15 months, 16 months, and everyone says it just keeps getting better, but I'm convinced, when I look back, there's going to be a pocket of time and I'll say, that's the time I wish I could hold on to most. So do you think of that? And what?
Yeah, I do. And it is when they're young. And I think I heard this, I don't know, on a podcast or read it sometime, but the comment was, you never know really when the last time is you picked up and held your son, but it'll come. And then when they're big, you just kind of think about when was that. So just being cognizant of that is something that always stuck with me that I had come across.
That's a great one. So every time I pick him up, just make sure I make a note of that. I'm still picking him up. I'm still in the good old days or whatever they call them. Okay. Good to know. This role, we talked about a little bit with Coach here, but I want to just dive into it more. It's such a unique opportunity to kind of have this first crack at this opportunity with both teams and kind of trailblaze for Notre Dame. Just, as you go into this, what do you kind of what does success look like from your vantage point for both programs and kind of carving out this new frontier?
Yeah. And I think in this world that we're in, it's an impossible goal to achieve, but I think it's something we can strive for is to, when we recruit and bring people on campus here and they become part of our team and part of Notre Dame, that we get them through when they graduate from Notre Dame. I think that's number one. Obviously winning games, being competitive in the ACC, making NCAA tournaments, those are all, performance-based goals that we have. But, I think from the highest level, if you think about what makes Notre Dame different and what we all really cherish and value at it, it's when you come here and you make it through, that you're part of the Notre Dame family for life. And so for us, I think that's like the little bit of the impossible benchmark that we're trying to hit.
Okay, so then I've talked to you mostly about NBA and basketball. I think about Notre Dame. What's this degree done for you? And when you talk to players, how do you talk about the value of what it's done for you post your playing days? Where have the benefits been from your standpoint?
Yeah, and I think it took me a while to really understand it, because, going to the NBA and playing, like whether or not I was going to make the team had to just come down to whether or not I was going to be able to, compete and play. But it was really after I retired and I was thinking about what I was going to do next, like those people who I went to school with here and who I had relationships here and I could call back at the university that worked in the athletic department were really like the people that I leaned on, not only for advice, but for, hey, maybe here's an introduction I could make that could be helpful. Mm-hmm. And it's continued on past that.
So there's an alumni relations part of this whole job. Just what do you want to try to harvest, or maybe not harvest is the right term, but what do you want to try to do with making sure the alumni feel connected and attached, and what's the outreach process look like on that front?
Yeah, no, and it's a tough one. And for us, it's a tough one because, obviously there's so many different eras involved. It's like all the way going back to Digger's guys. They have their own perception about how their experience went, to, my class and my group with John McLeod, to all of the guys with Bray that had tremendous, success, but now their coach is gone. And now we're going to have this group with Micah. And every school does that. And I think that, number one, it just starts with being available. And then when they come back on campus, making them feel welcome and like that they're part of the thing still. And a lot of that has to do with just spending time when guys come back. And I think once we start, doing a good job with that, and Micah really has been cognizant of that, and his staff has been, then it's, building upon it with things like, are you having nights during the season when you can pick a date where everyone comes back, where you can, you don't have to make it some blowout extravaganza, but just have a dedicated time when you try to get people back together during the season, maybe once during the summer. Just, things like that, just being aware of the importance of doing that and making an effort to do it.
Okay, so now I want to go back to basketball and think about your time here. When you think back to your time, you said played for McLeod, just like that era. What are the moments that flashed to your eyes in your career being on campus in the 90s? What comes to mind when you think about your time here?
Yeah, well, number one, a lot of the firsts.
Yeah.
So like the first football game I went to in the fall, literally like the first week when we played Michigan, I believe, in the fall of 94. And the excitement around that, because that was the first time, I'd experienced a football weekend as a student, and when it came to basketball, especially my freshman year, some of those teams that we were playing against, that was our last year of an independent. So it was UCLA on the road, Kentucky, Louisville on the road, Marquette, like just that kind of end of an era of Notre Dame basketball when they used to play that national schedule. And then going on into my career, the first time in the Big East when, it's a little bit like it is now where the Big East has reemerged. But back then the Big East was still one of the dominant conferences in college basketball with some of the great players that went on to become great NBA players and some of the great coaches who were coaching at that time. Mm-hmm. So just in those first games of being in, the Garden, or even though it's not the most glamorous place, the Meadowlands, where there's like, you have those East Coast, Northeast basketball fans and some of the legendary coaches that were on the sidelines at the time.
I know you're getting ready to, be part of this first season back, and a lot of your work is maybe not necessarily tied directly to what's happening on the court, day in and day out. But what's your excitement level for kind of being fully invested once again in I just broadcast the games, and I find myself living and dying with them in a way that I know the players and staff are much more. Like, how excited are you to be kind of back fully engaged in that way with this program?
Oh, I mean, extremely excited. And you're right. It's totally different when you're there every day in practice and you get to know the guys' personalities and you get to know, what the coaches are high on, what annoys them about, certain and you can start like picking out those things and the reaction that's going to happen from a coach before it happens. But no, I think that's for me the biggest thing, and especially with you talk about on the men's side this year, I think the excitement for me is really seeing how this pecking order gets established in the middle of the rotation. So you obviously know who the leaders, like Marcus is going to have the ball in his hands. Carson Tout, veteran player, he's going to be a big part of it. But there's a whole group of guys that are going to be fighting for minutes. That competition is going to be intense. And so seeing where that falls out, I think early on for me is one of the exciting things about this group.
Yeah. I'm excited to see, kind of like you said, where the rotation kind of plays out, and like that competition, first 2 years, not that there wasn't competition, but they're building something from the ground up. I hear that, and I hear that's probably a healthy thing to kind of maybe everybody benefits from that, right? I think the best battles are those where two guys are both vying for the same minutes, and whoever earns it is going to have the upper hand, but they're both going to get better for it, right?
Yeah, and it's happening, number one, it's happening among young players, and I think the number two thing about looking at this team is year 3 for Mike. This is the first year where it's his group, and it's by and large, with the exception of Carson, and I throw Kaba in as a Notre Dame guy because he was only at Penn State for 1 year.
Yeah.
But other than that, all recruited, developed Notre Dame players. Like Mike, his first year, had to put a team together on the floor, had to use the transfer portal to just put a group together. And it was going to be a little bit of a slow process in just getting all his guys from, and when I mean his guys, like from a young age, high school recruited players in. This is really the first year of that.
Well, I guess I should have asked him when he was here about year 3, but I get the sense too, you're always teaching as a coach, but you're not teaching from scratch. I mean, these guys they're on, level 301 of the course, right? And so in your playing days, when you were in the third year of a head coach or a system, how much more could you stack on top of that now that you're familiar with the personnel and the playbook?
Well, you can just start earlier with the things that you need to eventually get to before you play games. And so when you have a new group, and especially their young players, you're literally spending time on terminology and teaching drills at some point. Like, these are the things that we have to do to work on the drill, but like, here's how you do the drill so we can work on the thing that we're trying to build up to. So now when we started this summer, there were some new, obviously you have to do that with the freshmen, but the veteran players here were the ones that were snapping right in and leading that kind of thing.
Okay, Notre Dame question for you. What's your favorite spot on campus? Do you have one?
No, that's an easy one.
Okay.
So it's right by where I lived in Soren Hall. Not that I go and sit on the swing on the porch. I do that sometimes.
Okay.
But just that particular area around campus of Soren, the Dome, the Basilica, like, just for me, there's so much time I obviously spent like walking in that area. But that's when I do my campus tour with guests, like we go right to that as the starting
That's
point.
in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Okay, another important question I ask generally people that have been former players here, North or South dining hall?
No question, South.
Really?
Yeah, I was a South guy. Just
It's an unfortunate answer, but go ahead.
the architecture in South, like just the old school look. I don't think it's open any longer, but the Oak Room used to be there.
Okay.
I just remember that was open after basketball games, and so I could go there and like with my little coupons go buy a bacon cheeseburger.
I like that. That's a little hideaway. So I have a take that this is now year 3 of it, and I'll share it with you. The people like you, you can push back on this if you want. People are drawn to the architecture, you said it, of South, which is gorgeous. Don't get me wrong. Beautiful stained glass. You feel like you're in a movie. I think North. Have you been to the new North since they've remodeled it in the last 10 years?
I have.
Okay. I think the layout is phenomenal. It's linear. It's straight through. I get my food. South, you're kind of you're going through a corn maze to get your food, I think. And so I logistically favor North. Just architecture aside, I'm going for logistics, ease of, entrance and egress, and I get my food and I'm on my way. That's why I like North.
Well,
you have a rebuttal?
You're talking to a guy who's still like mad that they redid Soren and combined the tiny rooms that you could touch with your arms outstretched. So, so like a little bit of adversity, I don't think that should like take away from, your feeling of all the other aesthetically pleasing things that come with South.
I'm going to actually give you credit for something here. You're the first person to spin the flaws of South as just creating adversity, and it's maybe bettering you as a person.
That's right.
That is a really nice outlook that I can tell probably translates to the basketball court and helps you have a good outlook on hoops in life. Pat Garrity, thank you so much for stopping by. Really looking forward to what you do with both programs. It's great to have you back on campus, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, thanks, Tony. That was fun.
All right, thanks again to Pat Garrity and Micah Shrewsberry for stopping by. Before we get to our Ask the Host segment this week, I want to just say one more time, what an awesome weekend it was with Irish Jam on Eddy Street. My goodness. Thanks again to everybody that showed up. I was unfortunately not there. I was down the road, but I got a good glimpse at it from high above the stadium, saw some great photos and footage. And also just want to give a special shout out to TireRack.com. They, of course, sponsor this show, but they provided some of the awesome props that you saw for the skills competition out there. The whole event, as Micah Shrewsberry said, was just top notch from everything I heard and saw. And TireRack.com, all the sponsors, Under Armour, just did a phenomenal job putting on that event. So thanks to them for making it a really special night. And again, just like Coach Ivy and now Coach Shrewsberry coming on this show, it's kind of gotten me fired up for basketball season. So can't believe we're less than a month away from that. Okay, Ask the Host time. I promise you, this is not my burner account, but this question comes from Tony2581 on YouTube. Okay, you can go look at the profile. I promise you, I do have a couple YouTube burners out there. This is not one of them. I would not be so silly to put my name in the handle. Okay, the question is pretty straightforward, but the answer will probably take a while. How did you end up at Notre Dame, Tony, if you went to Pepperdine? Very good question. People ask me this all the time. I am fortunately mistaken for a Notre Dame grad often. I did not go to Notre Dame. I've never taken a class at Notre Dame. I'm a Pepperdine University graduate, as I mentioned on this show many times, out on the West Coast. And I went to Pepperdine because I wanted to broadcast. Now, Pepperdine does not have a great broadcasting program. It was not very robust at the time, but they did have the infrastructure where I could just call a bunch of games. So that was my mindset. I'm going to call a bunch of games and live on the ocean, basically. And did that for 4 years, and then wanted to, as I said, I think on a previous show, find a way to become the voice of a team and be effectively a professional sports broadcaster. That was not as easy as I thought it might be coming out of school, so I'll try to make this long story somewhat short, but I went and took a job in New Orleans. Actually, no, check that. Forgot about this. So I actually took a job for 1 day with a radio station in Missouri, and I made a mistake of not going out and kind of fully vetting the town where I would be living. I got out there. I was not psyched about living in that city, and I unfortunately quit this job on day one. And I told the people I made a mistake. I should have come out and vet this better. Great life lesson for me. So after that went awry a few weeks after graduating college, I had a choice to either go back home to Seattle or possibly go live with a couple friends in New Orleans. I chose the latter and went to New Orleans, lived there for a year. I valet parked cars. I worked at a country club, sweeping tennis courts. I'm saying all this to point out that it did not come right away that I ended up at Notre Dame. From there, I got a job with a tech startup out in Arizona. They worked in video streaming. This is in 2012, and they worked with a lot of college athletic departments. So now I'm slowly thinking, okay, I can work with this company, make some contacts. I think they did do a little bit of work with Notre Dame at the time, but not very directly. That led me to meet a contact with someone who worked at Harvard. Harvard had a broadcasting department similar to Fighting Irish Media. This is now about 2014. I met that person that ran that program and moved out to Boston to work for a couple years. While I was out there, did all kinds of work with Harvard and some other schools in the area, would broadcast hockey at Northeastern, which is in Boston. And that's where I started to really get some great broadcasting opportunities in my spare time. Then a job opened up at Notre Dame in 2016 in the Fighting Irish Media video production department. And my experience with Harvard and all the stuff I did in Boston has enabled me to apply for that and ultimately get the job at Notre Dame, working as, kind of an entry-level employee at Notre Dame on the Fighting Irish Media video production side. So that brought me here in 2016, and it's hard to believe now. This is going to be the 10th football season, or 10th sports season, really, that I've been at Notre Dame. All those other stops were 2 years or less between New Orleans, Arizona, and Boston. And now I've been in South Bend for almost a decade. So that's how I ended up here. Feel very fortunate that over the time I've gone from doing a lot of really interesting stuff with Fighting Irish Media on the production side, and ultimately, as I mentioned in a previous episode, through the help of a lot of people and some great experiences, managed to move more towards a broadcasting job, which is the one I have now, which I love. So that's the story. I think I did that somewhat succinctly. I'm not sure it was perfectly long story short, but I think it was short enough. So thanks again to Not My Burner, Tony2581 on YouTube for the great prompt. And keep the questions coming, fightingirish.com/wakeup. I believe the segment is called Ask Tony, but I'm calling it Ask the Host because you never know who might be in this seat next. I kid. I'll be here next week, I promise. Okay, a couple notes before we get out of here and say goodbye for the week. These have become, they are taking Notre Dame by storm. The Yeti tumblers. I'm holding one if you're watching. If you're listening, I'll describe it to you. It's a white Yeti mug with the Notre Dame Stadium logo on it. This will be available this weekend in the stadium for the NC State game. Also, we've got the traditional blue Fighting Irish Leprechaun logo. Make sure. I saw people just going crazy over the green football Leprechaun one last week. The mugs, obviously, they speak for themselves. It's a Yeti product, but the logo, the layout, they're doing a great job, and I think everyone's been really happy with them. So make sure you get your hands on these. They're awesome if you're at the game this weekend for Notre Dame versus NC State. Remember, download, subscribe, whatever you can do. Love the support here on wakeuptheechoes.com, and smash that like button. We really need that as we continue to kind of build this show up to the amazing heights it continues to reach. Okay, that does it for this week's episode of Wake Up the Echoes presented by TireRack.com. Until next week, Tony Simeone saying so long.